So today it's time to test out two very, very rare weapons. Now when I say very rare, we're not talking Enrager rare because of course these two weapons replaced the Enrager. Of course we're talking about two of the newest, greatest weapons in the game. They're really quite good. The Tormentor and of course the Hellstorm Wand. These two weapons are now in the Kudra loot pool. And I've talked about them before when they were rumoured. And yeah, let's take a look at them and see how good they really are. Well, first of all, we're going to take a look at the Tormentor. I feel like people are probably most curious about this weapon because, well, it's a sword. And the wand, even though it technically is a weapon, is more used for its ability. You know, just the same way a rogue sword or a zombie florid sword is used for its ability and not actually for the weapon, realistically. But what's so good about the Tormentor, and why is it 320 million coins? Well, first of all, this weapon is quite rare. It's not on the same level as an Enrager was. In fact, it's not really anywhere near on the same level. The cheapest one on the AH now is 380 million coins, which I just don't see how is the correct price. I paid like 280 for this yesterday. Well, I think that's just because there's not many on the market. And what do its stats look like? Well, they're actually very, very straightforward. It simply gives 525 base damage, no strength, no crit damage, just 525 base damage. Its ability, the damage you take is doubled while holding this weapon. So the ability is just nothing but a hindrance, really. And when you compare it to something like a giant sword, which is 100 million coins, gives 500 base damage, 1 swing range, and has 2 Jasper gemstone slots, and it also has a right-click ability, which, granted, is not the greatest, but at least its ability is not that you take double damage when holding the weapon. Now, we've not tested the Tormentor yet, so I don't want to speak too soon, but I doubt it's gonna really give us any surprises, you know? It's basically very, 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 very similar to a giant sword, over triple the price at the moment, with a massive hindrance. So I guess let's test it and see what it's really like. For testing purposes, we have a clean giant sword and also a clean dark claymore, considering, well, this is a weapon within the same realm too. But just before we go any further, at the moment we're actually trying to beat the population of Andorra with subscribers. The population of Andorra is around about 80,000 people, and once we reach 80,000 subscribers we'll actually be visiting Andorra and we'll be able to claim that we have more subscribers in the population of the whole country, which would be pretty cool, so make sure to subscribe to make that happen. Also, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS, it gets yourself 5% off. You should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of this video. We have a Slayers and Dungeon carries, so if you need carries, or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. Okay, well, let's get to testing. Let's test our Tormentor first, then our Giant Sword, and then our Dark Claymore. It's important to note that the Giant Sword's one-hit damage should just simply be slightly lower because it doesn't give us any other damaging stats other than, well, base damage, and it's lower than that of the Tormentor. And the Dark Claymore should just simply do more damage, but we'll see what happens. So, simply for the purpose of testing and comparisons, I'm using this Necron set with the Golden Thornhead. It doesn't really matter because we're going to be using the same for all of the weapons. Anyway, let's test our damage with the Tormentor. Okay, so 602k, 589k, 589. Yeah, we can pretty safely say our damage is what? We're going to take a low number and say 589. We'll now use the Giant Sword. Like I said, in theory, this should be, well, actually slightly worse in damage. 559k, yeah, it is slightly worse, but we've not tested our damage taking capabilities yet. Test again, 559. Yeah, so, you know, if you're looking for damage, the Giant Sword is actually worse than the Tormentor. I mean, anyone could have predicted that, just looking at the stats. But it is the same in practice as well, which is interesting. Well, not really. Anyway, we're going to now use the Dark Claymore. This, in theory, probably should be well, it should be the best in terms of damage, but we'll test. 632k, 619, 620. Yeah, so it is better, but they're all very similar. And for the massive drawback of the Tormentor, it doesn't really seem worth it. Well, now I want to test our damage taking capabilities, because that is obviously one of the drawbacks, the main drawbacks of this weapon, and of course that it's triple the price of a Giant Sword and doesn't really do much more damage. Anyway, we're just going to hold our Giant Sword and just... Never mind, that was not a good test. Anyway, this is going to be holding our Giant Sword. We're literally just going to walk up to one of these magma cubes and, well, let the magma cube hit us. With the Giant Sword, let's see how quickly we take damage. And how quickly we die, I guess. I mean, yeah, this is relatively quickly. I'm wearing no armor, and there's a big magma cube. Right, okay, now we're holding our Tormentor, our Healthless Regen, and maybe we just want to isolate one so we don't get hit by two. There we go. Magma cube, do your work. Oh my god. I mean, it's double damage, obviously, but we're getting absolutely nuked. You can really see the difference there. That is crazy. I mean, I've got to try and sell this weapon on, because there's no way I'm soul binding it. I've made too many mistakes soul binding weapons. But don't buy this weapon. I mean, I know most of you aren't stupid enough to do that, but just don't buy it. It's not justifiable. And yeah, I'm probably going to be stuck with this for a while now until it sells. On the other hand, if you are in the market for a Tormentor, this is probably going to be on the AH by the time you see this video. Anyway, let's go next. I don't really think we need to do any more tests with these weapons. I think we can safely put them aside. Did anybody just hear my neighbour's dog bark? Anyway, Hellstorm Wand. What do we have here? Right, so the Hellstorm Wand does have some regular stats. 120 base damage, 50 strength, 100 intelligence, although it's not really going to be what people are going to be using it for at all. It also does have a gemstone slot. Looks like it's for a sapphire gemstone. Anyway, its ability, right click ability, gain 5 ability damage but take double damage for 30 seconds. So, Hypixel's thought, you know, people struggle to survive as mage anyway, you know. Mage is notorious for being the glass cannon class. You can have 5 ability damage and take double damage. I mean, interesting. It's important to note that this isn't 5% ability damage, this is just a flat 5 ability damage. You might think 5 ability damage seems a little bit weak, but let's take a look at how much 5 ability damage actually is in the grand scheme, and let's see if you still think it's a weak increase. First of all, for those people who aren't sure or don't know what ability damage is or what it actually does, when damage an enemy using an ability, a multiplicative damage multiplier will be added to the formula. Therefore, the higher ability damage, the higher damage the ability does. Something like a sheep pet gives you 20 ability damage. Wither goggles give you 45 ability damage, and even dark goggles give you 25. The Loving Reforged for chestplates gives a plus 5% ability damage increase. The very expensive Bizarre Power Stone also gives 5 ability damage. And of course you can use your beacon for some extra ability damage too. So having seen the ability damage sources, it's pretty simple to see that ability damage is relatively scarce and hard to come by. In return, it actually is pretty good. So what I'll say, look at this ability, if the drawback wasn't that you take double damage, this would actually be quite good. Who would like to pass up on 5 ability damage? That's decent, and it's basically a constant 5 ability damage, because the ability lasts for 30 seconds, and the cooldown is 30 seconds, meaning that by the time the ability is run out, you'll be able to activate the ability again every 30 seconds, basically giving you a constant stream of plus 5 ability damage. Right, well, we still have foraging equipment on, and I really can't be bothered to find my implosion belt, but in the grand scheme, it's not going to make any difference because we're just going to be testing with and without the ability applied. So, without the ability applied, we deal 2.5 million damage. I mean, yeah, basically 2.5 million damage on the dot. Just note that at the moment, we're getting 84.5% ability damage, which means that a flat 5 ability damage for me right now is actually better than 5%. Because 5% of 84.5 is less than 5. Anyway, let's use our ability and see what this really does to our damage. Well, as you can see, killing 2 enemies there, we just dealt almost 5.15. Our base damage now is 2.6. So, yeah, it is giving us a slight increase in ability damage, as you would expect. Nothing crazy, might I add, but it works. And to test its drawback, taking double damage, which is the exact same drawback as the Tormentor, we're just going to do the same test as before, which should really yield the same results. Okay, yeah, hit us. We've not got the ability applied at the moment. Yeah, we take damage quick. It's nothing really too crazy though. Anyway, let's try this again with our right-click ability actually activated. Yeah, I mean, there's another noticeable difference right there. We're getting absolutely nuked. But realistically, there's not really much else to it. This is as simple as it gets. Both weapons, yeah, I don't know. make your own mind up. The sword is definitely useless, considering there's so many other weapons that are so similar. Giant Sword, Dark Claymore. Dark Claymore doing more damage for way less money. Giant Sword doing slightly less damage for way less money. Yeah, just to let you know, both the weapons are listed for 300 mil. So the cost of the Hellstorm one at the moment will be 300 mil. The lowest bin for Tormentor is 380 and the lowest bin for Hellstorm is 345. They're both overpriced. But if that's what people are paying, that's what people are paying. And as for this wand, the 5 ability damage is nice. However, I can't really see where it's going to be that useful, if I'm being completely honest. If you're okay with taking double damage, then go ahead and use it, because it's just a bonus stat that you can't get from anywhere else. But for 99% of people, this is going to be pointless. And on that note, I'm going to have to try and resell these items now. So wish me luck, and yeah, I guess I've done this so you don't have to do it. For any of you wondering what these two weapons were like, you now have definitive proof that neither of them are worth buying. Anyway, that's going to be all for today. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.
Walk 2500 on my shirt with the tag.